Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for Aloha, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Today, we recap the Packers' second NFC North divisional win of the season, a mark they didn't hit last year. So, progress, progress for the 2025 team over the 2024 team. Wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing game of any reason, but the Packers did what they needed to do to beat the Vikings at home for the first time with Jordan Love at quarterback. And it was really good for them to, to really put their stamp on this game. As has been the case with a lot of the game with the Packers this season, it took longer than it probably should have. But at the same time, you come away with the 3-score win, and we're going to be picking more. We're going to be more picking nits than just lambasting overall things. I think there's a bit more nuance to how this game played out than a lot of people are going to want to admit. But overall, just happy to see the Packers annoyingly only keep pace today. It looked like today might set up to be a really good day for the Packers, and the Giants and Steelers said, haha, just kidding. And the Packers will have to, it was always going to come down to the Packers pulling their own weight. And, you've gotten some good fortune already this season, and you've got to just carry your own water at this point. But Joe, I'm back. Looks like the Packers are back, and they've got 3 days turnaround before they play the Lions on Thanksgiving. But how are you doing today?
Well, I kind of like what I told Brian in our post game, and then I said this a couple of times on Twitter because people were talking about it. I think this is one of the few times that I'm okay with the conservativeness that LaFleur went with today.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is because of the short week going against two division rivals. This was like the optimal outcome for what you could have asked for today. Was it pretty? No. At least offensively, it was not pretty at all. There was still some things there that, again, because of the conservativeness, because of having the Thursday game, didn't make it look good. But overall, it was a win. The defense was dominant. The special teams didn't screw anything up. Matter of fact, they had plus a couple plays there. But overall, I think it was a good game.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, let's just pick off one big low-hanging fruit for this game. Jordan Love was very clearly limited today. The first sign of that is the fact that, before the game, Pelissero basically said that if this injury was to his throwing shoulder, he wouldn't have played today, and Thanksgiving would have been, at best up in the air, likely in doubt. So that just gives you an idea of how separated the separation in his left shoulder is. And then the tangible sign of it from the game itself was the fact that he handed everything off with his right hand. He barely even.
But I'm going to hold you on that one.
Yeah,
I'm going to hold you on that one because you got to remember he also came into the season having surgery on that left hand.
Right.
And this is one of the few times that I will agree with Tazim that he's been doing that on and off all season long because of that left hand. And if you looked at the hand today, he also had a bandage on. So
I think it's partly both ways, and I think that they just figured, you know what, like the thumb is mostly not a problem, but with the shoulder compounding that, like, just let's not even screw around and potentially open the door for any sort of issue there. So that's how I read into it. And you could kind of tell, like, Jordan was mostly on for today, but there were a couple throws where he couldn't, people say like, oh, it's his non-throwing arm, all that kind of stuff. But you just don't feel good rotating your torso when you've got a shoulder issue to the, obviously it's not his throwing arm, but to his non-throwing shoulder, he just doesn't want to like pop open that left side and really torque his body and stuff. So um, it's just him being a little bit conservative with it on all phases. But regardless, the main thing is that the offense played a clean game. Like you said, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't it wasn't aesthetically pleasing. They did need a little assistance to get that second touchdown, but when they had their opportunities, they did take advantage of them today. So we can start to after now that we've gotten that note out of the way, we can go and get into our segments today.
Well, before I do, Brian wanted me to play this for you, so I got to play this real quick.
I got a little fun joke to poke at Colano.
Okay, go for it.
What JJ McCarthy needs in Minnesota is what he had in Michigan: Colin Stallions, the ultimate cheater. That'd make a whole world of difference. It's
So he had to poke fun at you, so I had to play that for you. But yeah, we can go ahead and judge. Do you want to respond real quick to that, or do we just want to jump into it?
There's nothing really to say. He's playing so bad. Really, that whole Minnesota offense is just playing terribly. Justin Jefferson can complain all he wants, but that O line doesn't block much of anything very well. JJ's not playing well, as partly as a result of it, and all those jokes are going to play themselves out because the only way they weren't is if JJ came out and played really well, and with the way he's played, especially these past couple weeks, like just opened the door for all those kind of snide remarks and stuff. So it is what it is. Until he plays better, that's going to be the talking point.
And like I kind of told Brian, I don't feel sorry for him today because the Packers defense was just dominant. But overall, I feel sorry for him because last year he didn't have a rookie season. This year he has nobody to sit behind. They just said, "Here, kid, you're our guy," and so, and then on top of that, with how Darnold played last year and how Darnold is playing this year, now you've got all the fans saying, "Well, we should have just kept Darnold. We should have just kept Darnold." So, like I said, I don't feel sorry for him for today's game, but I do feel sorry for him overall because this isn't the type of situation that you want for a young kid.
It was a no-win situation. It's honestly in a weird way worse than the Jordan situation going into 2023 because everybody knew Rodgers was still 22 wasn't a good season for Rodgers, but they're like, okay, he's one season off from being a back-to-back MVP. The play is gonna be depreciatively worse. You got rid of Razul, and there's questions on defense. How good were they really on that side of the ball? All that kind of stuff. The questions in the wide receiver room, and so there was we're gonna find out about Jordan. Whereas with McCarthy, it's kind of like Vikings fans will tell you we were just hoping to get average play because if you got average QB play, the top. If you go listen to Paul Farrington show, the one that Herman goes on.
Okay. Yeah.
He talks about how he and Ziggy, his co-host, they talk about how you just needed forget top 15, you needed top 20 QB play, and they're not even getting that. But realistically, no Viking fan, because they're thinking Darnold's a bust. You should be able to come in and play well under O'Connell kind of thing and all. And like you said, I don't feel sorry for McCarthy because he's not my quarterback. He's a rival. And I hope we embarrass him every time we play him at this point because that's just how it goes. Westendorf and I joke about that all the time. We love him for what he did in Ann Arbor, but I mean, you're the enemy now, and especially when we play you guys, we're hoping for the worst for you. But at the same time, it's that situation. There was only two ways it could go, and like you said, unfortunately for McCarthy, it's gone the way of, everything's his fault. This team, and like I said, he's not done any favors for himself by how he's played. And at the same time, I don't think that situation outside of Justin Jefferson was nearly as good as a lot of people tried to make it out to be. That O line has been so much worse than everyone thought it would be. And just overall, nothing has worked out the way that Vikings fans want to be. But this is a Packers show, and we're gonna get on to our segments. So hit the button, Joe.
It's a moldy cheese.
Or oh,
Oop,
wait,
hit the
we're
wrong
backward.
one.
Mmm, fresh cheese.
You want to lead us off?
I mean, you got the obvious one. You got Emmanuel Wilson. He came in. Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs more or less was out because of it being a short week. I think everybody can agree that had it been normal week, normal rest, he probably would have played. But because it was such a short week, they would rather have him for the Detroit game than worry about it during today's Vikings game.
And plus,
So
you get more time off after that game than a
yeah,
normal week too. So yeah, you get the mini bye to let him reset and stuff. So yeah, completely
so
agree with you there.
28 carries, 107 yards, 3.8 average with 2 touchdowns. And then he added a couple, 18 yards in the receiving area. So really went out kind of in a way, and this is just because visual for casual fans or whatever, looked way better than Josh Jacobs has really all year with running in the lanes and getting into open space and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying he's a better player than Josh Jacobs. I'm not saying all that stuff. But if you're a casual fan and you see we haven't had the 100-yard rusher all year, and then all of a sudden this guy comes in and automatically gets 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, uh, you're questioning why you're paying big money to Josh Jacobs and whatever. But solid rotation with him and Chris Brooks. I'm surprised they didn't use Pierre Strong at all. They just kept running with uh, uh, Wilson and Brooks. But this is where I say the conservativeness didn't bother me so much because it was actually working with Wilson.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you kind of got the feeling of that on that. Not so much the first like the scoring drive, but like the second drive on where he had those like there were those sequences where he would get like four consecutive runs kind of thing and he would pop it and you're kind of like okay like it's working good but at some point and then like the next first down is like lose 3 yards and it wasn't Wilson's fault or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's just like at some point Flores is like well screw this. I'm not gonna let you just boing your way through and stuff. Or he had the third down play call where he's just like, fuck it, they're running inside zone and he just runs Eric Wilson off of what's it called? Aaron Banks butt cheek kind of thing. And there's nothing that Wilson could do on that play. And I agree with you. Like I had a complaint early on in the game where you're like, oh, like come on, LaFleur, like use that, use Wilson's hard charging running style. Let's get a little more play action. Like I said, the weather wasn't great, and Love looked relatively on target early on in the game and stuff. And so I was kind of like it was one of those like I don't know what the forecast was for today, but I'm like while the weather's good, get your throws in kind of thing. And especially against a team that you want to put down early so that you can get after the quarterback. Like, yeah, like let's get some throws in. But like you said, over in the grand scheme of things, Jordan clearly not 100%. Um, Wilson having success, like just ride the hot hand and stuff. And like you said, both of us are here say, we've said all season saying like, don't be so conservative, be more aggressive, all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, this really did play out very similar to how week 1 did against Detroit, where it's like they ran the ball effectively this time and they got enough pass plays in to like create first downs and stuff like that. And your defense, the big one is for my first fresh point is the defense had an overall really good day at the office. And therefore, and Olsen, I appreciate that Greg Olsen made this point like, oh, you have two philosophies. One is like your defense is playing well, especially as the half has played out, the first half has played out today, so that you can play this more ball control style. But you and I fall on the side that Olsen kind of, I think, was pounding the table for, where he's like, you can also set up your defense by going for the jugular a little bit. But I agree with you. Overall, no Jacobs, They're starting to do some more different shuffling on the offensive line. Um, that center quarterback exchange between Ryan and Love, it's mostly been good, but there are still a few times where you can tell Ryan's not a natural center and hasn't played a lot of center. And you see where he's like, oh God, like I'm reading this double A gap look. I got to get this ball back faster and get my head up and get into the play kind of thing. And he kind of zings a little hot and high against across Love's face. So I agree with you. Like Wilson, great day. I know the numbers aren't flashy or anything, but like I said, LaFleur really looked at it and it was like, it's working. So I'm gonna like put all my cards on that horse. And like you can't do this in terms of like a numbers because the numbers are what they are. But he ends up 28 for 107, but the two touchdowns are both 1 yard touchdown runs. And so like, if you do the non-touchdown plays, the non like goal line dive plays, he's at 26 for 105, which still isn't like anything special, but that's over 4 yards a carry on not like just into the end zone plays. So like you said, Wilson deserves his flowers. I really appreciate Olsen doing a great job as color guy, like doing like his homework on Wilson and doing the whole like this is a guy who got cut 3 days after signing with the Broncos and was ready to quit on his NFL dream, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. And he did the whole 9 yards on like, and now look at him, he's starting for the Packers on a playoff contender and has been like a good like source of offense. And we've both pounded the table for Wilson at different times, and we really like how he runs, and it's really good just to see guys like that take their opportunity and run with it. Back to my fresh thing, it's the defensive performance, and especially this pass rush. Like I said, this Vikings O-line, it came into the season with, I don't want to say fanfare, but Vikings fans were really like pounding their chest about how like once we get Christian Darrisaw back, this is going to be a top 10, maybe even top 5 offensive line because they made 2 big signings in free agency, getting Kelly from I think they signed 2 Colts guys, Kelly from the Colts and one of the guards from the Colts. His name is escaping me. And then they're like, and we've got Darrisaw coming off injury and Brian O'Neill, who's just been a stalwart on the right side for like a decade now. But injuries and Darrisaw not being himself after injury has really turtled that O-line, and they've been a mess up front. And so it was really good to see the Packers control the line of scrimmage. They had some moments where the Vikings were able to crease them in the run game a little bit. I do think Olsen again made a good deal pointing out like you don't have Quay Walker today, and therefore like you're playing McStuffy out of position at Mike linebacker, and Hopper is having to play more, so your run fits aren't as crisp as they are if your starting alignment is in there. So it was good to see them like kind of get their stuff together and then be able to just rein in this Vikings offense and getting 5 sacks. Like I said, some people say like, oh, but you just said their O-line isn't that good. How many times have we said that about an O-line and the Packers haven't like converted kind of thing? And how much of that is on a young quarterback who's not seeing the field very good? How much of that is on the pressure? I thought on initial watch they were creating consistent pressure in the pocket. Parsons, this is a game you bring him to Green Bay for, and you see even on the sack, the goal line sack that Devontae Wyatt gets, Parsons is the one who just completely screws everything up for the Vikings on that play. Almost honestly could have created a safety if they called the center for like grabbing onto him as he got by him. But you just saw the Packers really just take apart a O-line in a way they haven't done in a few weeks, and it was really good to see that from them. And I jokingly was messaging Jacob back and forth that, of course, this is the week we're gonna make McCarthy look like the top 10 pick he is, because that's what we do. It's how I joke about my Red Sox, that we make any rookie pitcher look like a potential Cy Young candidate kind of thing and stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of been the Packers' MO on defense for the past 5+ years. So it was really good that I know some people aren't gonna give it the flowers it deserves. On a day where you're supposed to tilt the field on a certain side of the ball, it was good to see the Packers defense do that. I thought Halfley called a good aggressive game. And one thing that I didn't get to carry through the whole game because I didn't get to watch part of it. My kids had swimming lessons, but it did look like they made a more concerted effort to keep Parsons and Gary on the field a lot more of the first half than they had in previous weeks. And I don't think that's a function of like all the questions about why did Inaugure out snap Gary last week and stuff. I do think, and we saw it on offense too, where LaFleur tightened his rotations down at wide receiver. And I kind of wonder if they played the first half of the season. Let's spread the snaps out. Let's, give guys opportunities. Let's see if they can run with it. But I do wonder if, as they get into this back half of the season, especially this 3-week stretch where they're playing 3 division opponents in a row, if we're going to see them just be like, all right, let's start to ratchet things in. Let's get our better playmakers out there and let's start to ramp them up so that, they're going to see a little bit more playing time as the playoffs come. And Parsons played his part. Rashawn had a couple QB hits, almost got in for a sack at one point. And Wyatt, it was good to see. I know his were more cleanup sacks, but it was good to see him get on the board. He's been pretty quiet since returning from injury. And how about Brinson getting his first, half sack today? So just a good game up front. Like I said, the run game was a little more effective for the Vikings, especially early on. But overall, they just snuffed the life out of this Minnesota offense from up front as the game went on.
For sure. And, you also have to throw in, and like I told Brian during the post game, that I'm waiting for Pro Football Reference to drop the stats on how many snaps each player played. Because I know Van Ness played, but I'm wondering how much it was, because it didn't look like a lot. But I think that was also a factor in some of it too. But I'm going to ask you, because I asked Brian, and I said this on social medias and that, is it actually an interception by McDuffie? Or because by rule, the arm wasn't quite going forward and Rashawn hit it. The ball didn't start coming forward until Rashawn hit the ball
him
out of his hand.
Yeah.
So by rule, that would technically be a strip sack.
We'll see. What's it called? So far, the official score is it's an interception. They'll take a day and they'll kind of like reconcile. I forget if they wait till the Monday night game is done or not, but I think like 24 or 48 hours after the game is when the like official scoring is like set. And as it is so far, what is it, whatever, like 6 hours after the game, we are still with with 2 interceptions for the Packers. So obviously, it'd be great for Rashawn's stats and stuff like that. But I think either way, it's just nice to see this front creating a lot more pressure again. Pressure that's resulting in tangible effects. Like I'm always for heating up the quarterback no matter what. Pressures do matter, but you do want to be converting those into tangible positive outcomes for your team, whether it's sacks, hits that are creating off-target throws. Not all pressures are created equal, and especially though against like you said, basically a rookie quarterback in McCarthy because he didn't play last year. It is good to see them getting hits and sacks and just piling up the counting stats, those like tangible counting stats that like matter as opposed to just being around the quarterback.
Yeah, and like I was telling Brian, I'm kind of torn on it because, for one, I would love to see it be an interception because it was McDuffie's first career interception.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it would kind of knock the whole Rashawn isn't producing narrative out the window. So it's kind of, you know, which one do you want more? But if you go by rule, it should be a strip sack.
Yeah, it'll be
But
really interesting to see.
yeah, as a whole, the defense played great. Evan Williams looked like he was playing lights out. He had of course, the interception was a. I made the joke on socials that was a Jay Cutler like throw because it was way outside of the reach of the wide receiver and straight to Evan Williams. So it was great to see that actually hang on to it compared to what last week was with all
Oh
the
my god.
drops.
Yeah, I know. Like and especially like you had the one where McDuffie like knocked Valentine out and stuff like that, or
And then
Bullard
the other
out.
one
Yeah,
was Nixon, and it looked like McKinney like slapped it out of his hand.
yeah.
And so it was good to see that he actually hung on to that one. But my thing with the defense, and I got to credit Halfley with it, was when Nixon went out with what they were reporting as a stinger, instead of sticking with his soft zone coverage, he was like, I don't know if it was like he didn't trust what Haddon when he brought him in. So it's like, well, we're just going to send everything we got at McCarthy so he doesn't have any chance to hit any kind of receiver. And it's like, Jeff, we've been calling for that all friggin' season.
Yeah. Like Deron Bland has an all pro voting because the Cowboys were just like, he's not very good, so let's just light the pocket up and we'll get some interceptions out of it, kind of thing, because of errant throws. And like I said, I understand the philosophical reasoning behind Halfley's approach and all that kind of stuff, but it's the same stuff we say about LaFleur on offense, where it's like, that's not what your team does or is really good at doing. And you've got to play to what your team actually does well. So, like you said, it, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out on Wednesday or Thursday, on Thanksgiving against the Lions, if, a different opponent creates different things and stuff. But um, it was good to see it for one day. And it was really important for the Packers to do that. And like I said, no one's gonna give the Packers any flowers for beating up on a Vikings team that has offensive issues. But at the same time, like, you did the thing you're supposed to do against against a deficient team. And for once this season, we saw them like take advantage of those mismatches all over the field on defense, and it was really good to see out of them.
For
Anything?
sure. And
Yeah,
like I said, that was great to see. Uh, even Tyron Hopper was getting some play in there, so that was good to see him get a step up in place of, kind of rotating in and out with McDuffie. So that was good to see. But uh, yeah, overall, you can't complain.
yep.
Um, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there was a lot of good things going on today. Uh,
No real drops today.
no real drops. Your tight ends look decent for what little they had going to them. Even Musgraves, they finally sent him up the seam and he drew the DPI.
Yep.
And then he had a catch later on in the game that kind of extended out that drive, and he stayed on his feet and actually got a little bit of yak, and that was kind of amazing. Uh, let's see. Like you said, no real drops, so the receivers were kind of doing their. Even though we only really saw play out of Dobbs and Watson. Well,
Yeah.
I guess there
And
was a couple to
Wicks.
Wicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wicks had
Uh,
some key receptions, so it's good to see him kind of get back in the flow of things and a little bit more like explosiveness out of him. He's been really like not a check down guy, but like a just like catching the ball at the sticks guy so far this season. So it's good to see him like get some shake down the field and create a few more like kind of bigger plays and stuff. The O line overall, I thought was good. Like like we both said, it wasn't like a flashy day at the office, but overall, like, you kind of set the table for what you were gonna do this game, and you run the ball 42 times. That's counting. So you run the ball 42 times, and that's including what's it called, kneeling out the clock a couple times, so you take 40 like official runs and you get like 148 yards. Like, that's a really good day at the office, that you kind of just say like, we're gonna do this thing and stop us. And it, like you said, it was a little more sloggy than it was like aesthetically pleasing, but at the same time, like, you can't complain too much when this is obviously how they wanted to approach the game. And the two big factors, we're going to keep saying it over again: short week, Jordan's not 100%, so we'll see how it goes going into Thursday. But you did what you needed to do to secure a 3-score win, which is something they haven't done a lot of this season. So as much as we can lambast like, oh, like, I wish that they had let Jordan throw a few more times. I wish that you didn't get Jordan blown up in the pocket, especially against a defensive coordinator who likes to blitz a lot. You kept him pretty clean throughout most of the game, and you just you controlled the flow of the game. I I do want to see them open it up a few more times here and there, because I don't think you can do this against all the best teams in this like the I don't think this is going to stop the Rams from putting 31 on you in a half kind of thing and stuff. So you have to be able to again show that you can go blow for blow against a good defense. But for what was on the table for this week, the Packers didn't. I want to say a minus job at minimum of like, this is your game plan. This is what we're gonna do today, and they executed pretty well for against a division opponent that has given you trouble the last few years.
And I guess we should throw special teams in there, because there were no real mistakes. They they had the key turnover on special teams. By doing their job, you're told to drive the guy towards the ball to try to force a mistake. Zane, I had to laugh when I watched that friggin' replay, because you saw the ball come loose, and then all of a sudden you see Zane Anderson grab it and fetal. It's like, you're not getting that ball away from him, because he just went leech on that ball. he grabbed it and fetaled it. And so you got that, you had that, and then you had Whelan had a pretty decent game today. So yeah, I mean, even though I know what it's going to seem like, we're going to end up having some stales and some moldies, and we'll end up talking more about those in a way. So it's going to seem like we're ragging on this game, but they did so well, it's hard to pick and choose what
Yeah,
we want to talk about as good.
and like it was kind of a it was, for all intents and purposes, a very ho hum win. You win by 17, but it's 23-6. It's not like it was 34-17 or something like that where you scored 4 touchdowns. Like I said, you take the opening drive, march down the field, get a touchdown. And then your other touchdown comes off of that muffed punt. So you drive across midfield, get stuffed up, and then you kick it down and get a short touchdown run kind of thing. So um like I said, you took advantage of your opportunities in a way that you really haven't the past month or so. You've kind of let good opportunities go by the wayside. So it's good to see the team do that. But yeah, I think that's really it for now, for like the real like fresh and great from this game, because they did a lot of good, but I don't know how much of it was necessarily great today, kind of thing.
Right. So, well, let's just go ahead and jump in to the next one.
What's this stale shit?
So, the one that sticks in my mind is, even though it didn't necessarily hurt them, I'm again to the point in the season that, let's stop with the rotation on the offensive line. Pick a guy. Obviously, it's not Morgan at right guard, because he just can't handle or can't hold up there. So, and I know Belton had the ankle injury for a while, but if he's healthy, if he's the guy you think's going to be your guard going forward, put him there. Then you can let Morgan take the reps at left tackle, behind Walker at the moment in practice. And, if that's who you're thinking is your left tackle of the future, then he can start taking snaps from Walker. But, it didn't hurt him today, but you're not going to be able to go forward continuing to rotate these guys in and out.
Yeah, I I'm so torn because I agree with you. Like at some point it's like, do you guys like Morgan at a spot or do you not? Like that
Right.
like and and I don't like him at guard, but it's like you've done so many things to get him in at right guard that it's like, oh, like now you're realizing why we don't like him at guard because he gets blown up by power so easily and so often. And then on the other hand, I'm like, I like how Belton looked in there. I've always thought that he was more of a guard at the NFL level than he was a tackle, and I do understand that like he didn't rep guard nearly as much as he's rep tackle, especially I think once the regular season started. I think they really put a lot of his work in at tackle, and then like you said, you have the injury, so he's missing time and all that kind of stuff. But I agree with you, like at some point the merry-go-round has to stop spinning and you got to just make a decision. And um I
Well, and
think
on top of that, because you know what's going to happen at the end of the season, you're obviously not wanting to re-sign Rasheed Walker. You're obviously are either going to cut uh,
Elton.
uh, Elton, or you're going to majorly restructure his contract. You're probably not bringing Ryan back unless it's on an extreme uh, cheap deal. So, and there's a possibility that they somehow don't bring Aaron Banks back, but that's probably less more. How do I put that? That's probably less likelier to happen than the other situations, but it's still a possibility. So why mess with this stuff? Force a guy to learn a position that you're not going to have him play going forward. Whereas Belton seems like he's going to be your guard of the future.
Yeah.
I know that's what Mafi likes to throw out there all the time, is he's a better guard than he is any, or he's projected as a guard. Well, you know what, Mafi, suck it, because Brian Bulaga was also quote unquote projected to be a guard. And where was his All Pro seasons at? Where were they, Mike?
Right tackle.
Okay, so Mafi, shut up. Um, so it it doesn't it you're you were able to get away with it on limited basis. Like today against the Vikings, you were able to get away with it. You were able to get away with it last year in a couple of games. You were able to get away with it a couple of years ago in a couple of games. But it's not going to be something that you can steadily go forward with, especially with some of the teams that we're coming up against. You're going to have a hard time against Detroit. You're probably going to have a hard time against Chicago, uh, Denver, Baltimore. Those teams have these defenses. You're not going to, especially if you're wanting to run more of an up tempo offense against some of these teams, you're not going to be able to do it going forward. So settle in with some guys. Obviously, you have to do it if there's injuries, but settle in with some guys, call it good, and and next year settle in even further.
Yeah, I agree with you. And especially like this Detroit game. Like I understand doing it at home and stuff, but like this Detroit game coming up, you're in Detroit, it's short week. That crowd is gonna be up and at it and all that kind of stuff. So um just don't play with fire. Like you need that game on Thursday. So yeah, just stop screwing around with it. Um like I said, the nitpicky one that I have for Stale is like I felt like LaFleur it I kind of just throw my hands up in the air on this one because like we both said the plan was so obvious to like if the run game could go like run the ball and get a win and get to Thanksgiving kind of thing, like that was very clearly the attitude for the team going into this game and stuff. But there were so many times where you're like, okay, the run game is having success, Matt's gonna go to the well a few too many times and stuff, and it's like you would have liked to have
And
seen a play action or something to like change. Like I said, you had that one third down play where Wilson like delayed blitzes right off the guard kind of thing, and it's like we know your tendency, we know what you're gonna do. You're gonna either run inside zone or one of your stupid ass dumb toss plays into the boundary. And Wilson just shot a gap and was like, "Here I am. Let's get a TFL on this third and short and get you off the field," kind of thing. A couple of those first downs, and then like you're in first and like 13 because you lose like 2 or 3 yards, or second and 13 because you lose a couple yards, and it's like I get that you're trying to shorten the game and get to Thursday and all that kind of stuff, but it's like you don't have to be so stubborn as a mule about it, kind of thing. Like you can, like it's like Greg Olson was saying. It's like I understand wanting to play like you have what should be a pretty straight advantage, your defense against their offense kind of thing. But it's like, why not create a couple more explosive pass opportunities, hit on those, and then you can create a few more like touchdown opportunities and really tee off on an opposing quarterback. So yeah, that was my one stale for my biggest stale for the game. Oh, Baker.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you could see it a few times, like you said, where we got into 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and what happens? You get a play action, or not a play action, as shotgun run play. That was getting kind of predictable. But again, like I said at the top of the show, I think this is one of the few times I can be okay with it because we weren't in a shootout at all. You were just basically buying rest time for your defense on a lot of that stuff. So, whatever. I will add on the one something to your where you keep talking about Olsen. I was getting tired that early on that we kept hearing the phrase "give it to your $50 million quarterback." Give it to your $50 million quarterback. It's like it doesn't matter how much the guy makes. I get your point, Greg, but we don't have to keep going back to well, give it to your $50 million quarterback. Give it to your 50. I was seriously, if I still drank, that was probably going to be a drinking game. Was how every time he said that, just take a shot on it. I don't normally have any issues with Greg Olson on commentary, but that was just getting super annoying today.
Too many bat times back to that. Well,
Yeah.
um,
Other than
yeah.
that, I stale wise,
The only other
I
one I got was like I said, the run fits. Like they, especially if Quay is not going to be able to play on Thanksgiving, they've got to figure that out against Detroit, because the way that they shut Detroit down week 1 is they were just super disciplined in their run defense. They had really good gap control, and you can't have those kinds of mess ups that you had the past couple weeks where you're just one guy not being in their gap assignment kind of thing. You just can't have those kind of mistakes that like they've had the past few weeks. For Stale, that's it though. Yeah, like I said, like there aren't too many things to poo poo about this game, because overall, like you come out with a 17-point win in a game you should have won like that. Like, yeah.
Well, yeah. What was this? What was it? They were like 6.5 point favorites, and this is the first game all season that they've won a game being that such high
Yep.
favorite.
Yep.
So, all right, we can jump on.
It's a moldy cheese.
The one that I think I'm going to put into moldy right now is we've got to get Romeo off of punt returns. I understand why, because he's more sure-handed, but he plays it too much receiver-like. I mean, even Olsen kind of said, well, he caught it like a receiver on one of the punt returns he had, and then he like delays when he's actually returning, to the point where, okay, you can't just sit there and wait for things to, you kind of go out, you got to kind of go out and I don't know if this is me being spoiled, because Iowa's punt returner has been just like super amazing this year. This is my way of saying, Brian Gutekunst, you need to get Caden Weegent at all costs this next season. But I I don't know. I don't think he's been bad at it, but you can tell he doesn't know what he's doing as the returner. Am I
Yeah,
off on that?
I no, you're not off. I'm fine with it because he's fielding them clean when he fields them. Today's game was the first time where I don't know if he misread the punts or if they just told him like if it looks like it's going inside the 10, get away from it. Like because there was a few where he's fielded them in between the 10 and the 5 kind of thing. And today, I don't know if it was the weather, the fact that it was a gloomy overcast game, or if the wind was weird, but like there were like because there was the one where they started with the ball on like the 2 yard line or whatever, and like
Yeah.
like he could have fielded it, he could have fair caught it, and like we would have started on the 8 or something like that. But it kind of looked like he was playing it like I'm told I'm not supposed to go inside the 10 yard line kind of thing and stuff. The return, you're right. Like that delay on the returns, it is weird. I, I don't like my thing is like I'm so used to seeing not field so many at like the 30 yard line that bounce down to like the 20 or the 15 that I'm like, fuck it. Him gaining 4 yards is like 20 yards of better field position than what we were getting with anything else that was back there. So yeah, like I I'm only stopping short of agreeing with you completely because I'm like, I think sadly this is the best they're gonna get this season. Because the other option, Jaden wasn't doing that great last year and he's injured. Keyshawn has never been super sure-handed as a punt returner. He always has kind of given me a little bit of heartburn as a punt returner. And Golden just it doesn't look natural when he's back there. I don't I don't know who else you would try there. Yeah, and for all the people that were bemoaning, like, oh my God, Goot and LaFleur fucked up with the whole Miko Hardman thing. He's on IR. Like
Yeah.
he had the nice punt return, and then he muffed one that no one talks about, later in the game. Just conveniently everyone doesn't recognize that he muffed one later in that same game. And then, oh yeah, he's on IR, so it's totally moot at this point. The only other place I can go is like maybe one of those practice squad guys can do it, but then you get into the whole like who are you elevating that guy over or whatever. So like
I don't even think you'd have to do that necessarily. I mean, there's enough guys on the active roster at the moment that you could give a shot at. I mean, you got Malik Heath. Why not give him a shot at it just to see if he can, because here's the other thing. You don't necessarily want Romeo on punt return because there's more likelihood that, there's an injury there. So who would you rather have back there with a more likelihood, with a bigger probability? Would you rather lose Malik or would you rather lose Romeo? Especially with the way Romeo's been kind of banged up all year long anyway. But I mean, you've got that. You've got maybe you could try Wilson back there when Jacobs is when Jacobs is playing. Obviously, you don't want Wilson back there if he's having to start the game. There's got to be something they could try that's not. Why not put Savion back there? He's already taking your kick returns.
Savion's the one guy that I'm kind of like, maybe there's something. The thing is they just don't like when you look at body types, they just don't have a lot of body types that you look at and you're kind of like, that's what a punt returner looks, like that kind of
Whoa.
slender, explosive receiver.
Have
like,
I got a guy for you? He's averaging 28.3 yards per punt return this year.
And teams still keep punting it to him for some reason beyond reason. And
This is kind of a way out there, but did you happen to catch any of the Hawkeye game this weekend?
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
literally having their quarterback punt the ball on fourth down instead of bringing the punter out there because the defense was lining up and preparing for them to actually go for fourth down, and they wouldn't bring Weegent out there for it would allow them not to have to deal with Weegent on the return. So that's what they were doing. They did it like 4 or 5 times that the quarterback was punting the ball on fourth down.
Yep. So
So yes, this is where I officially state: if you want to fix your return, both returns, your kickoff and punt returns next year, whether it's a late round pick, because I honestly, and even though I'm an Iowa homer and all that stuff, there's no way I could justify using a high round pick on Weegent because I don't think he's going to be more than a gadget guy / return specialist in the NFL, because I think he's only listed at like 5'9" on the Iowa uh, website. Well, as two draft guys, we both know that colleges overestimate on their guys. So if they're listing him at 5'9", he's probably only 5'6", 5'7".
he's Darren Sproles sized. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that's my whole spiel on that. But I I don't know. There's so many others that they could. There's so many different people that they could try, and I kind of go back to the Malik Heath thing. You're sparingly using him. He's already quote unquote had his disciplinary thing this last week. You're using Bo Melton over him. Why are you keeping him on the roster if you're not using him? And this isn't to say we know what's going on in practice or anything. I guess this could be something that we could shoot off to the beat on socials and say, hey, what are you seeing when it comes to Heath as a returner or something, because they might be able to give a little bit more of an answer than what we can give you from our situations. But I there's I don't know. I don't like seeing Romeo back there. Not that he's not been capable of what he's doing. He just doesn't. He's. I don't think he's producing well enough to justify using your number one, number two receiver as the punt returner.
Yeah, and like I said, my only counter is like he's catching it when he fields him, he's fielding them clean, and that's really all I care about. But I do agree, he's not natural back there necessarily, but none of the guys they put back there have looked that smooth anyway. So yeah, that's really where I'm at on that side of it. I'm trying to think if anything really hit moldy for me. Um,
Like I said, this one's really a struggle because even though they did so much good, it's hard to pick and choose on that, and there's very little bad that you can actually sit there and pick apart.
yeah, like I guess the moldy for me would be like we're coming out the end of November and I still don't know what this team's identity is. And part of that
Yeah.
is injuries are kind of clouding it, and part of it is they're still trying to figure out what they want to do on offense without Kraft in the mold. And we've seen them go to more of the jumbo set and stuff. So I am glad that like Matt has been pretty quick to bounce in that direction. And honestly, I've liked a lot of the stuff they've run out of that jumbo set. They have created some strong runs, whether it's on, it's in like clear running situations. And I do want to see them pass a little more out of that. I think they've been, I think honestly a little bit by design they've been run heavy just to sort of set, these are our tendencies, and then you can counter off of it. But and like I said, and like you've been saying repeatedly, and I'll say it again, this is like a nitpicky moldy, but I'm just like, I don't know what this team does well. And the reason I'm putting it in moldy is like we're getting into the part of the season where it's like you should know what your bread and butter is, what you should be leaning on as a team, and I just don't know at this point. Like this team should be able to create explosive in the passing games. They've been inconsistent because they can't protect the quarterback well enough in time. I think playing more Chris Brooks is going to help with that. I because he has been, like, Olsen did such a great job of highlighting how much of an eraser he's been for the Packers on the interior of their pass protection schemes. I think that they've, like you said, just pick an O line at this point. I, I don't want to say I don't care if it is Morgan at right guard, but you've just got to pick one at this point. Like, just stop shuffling the deck chairs. The ship is on its way. You can't keep going. You can't keep waffling on this thing. You're not gonna beat the best teams by shuffling your O line around. You don't play efficiently. And I know the advanced numbers say otherwise, but this offense is so herky jerky that you can't afford to have a drive end because, oh shoot, the guard went the wrong way and it's because he doesn't quite have the calls down, or oh, he heard differently, that kind of stuff. So it's like stop playing with your food in that sense and just make a decision. But yeah, like I don't like the fact that this team should be so much better than last year's team, but we kind of had this conversation last season where it's like, okay, like what is this team going to be and what is it really good at? And I just don't like that we're here at the end of November heading into this Thanksgiving game and we're having this same conversation where it's like, yeah, what do they do well? What is going to be their tent pole for the playoff run and all that kind of stuff? So like that's more of a big picture thing, but it is like kind of in the, you know, I can't harp on it too much this game. Like you said, circumstances, the short week, Jordan, Golden, how healthy or injured is he? Lucas, how injured or healthy is he? You don't have Quay, so obviously you're playing with a unshuffled, unfull deck. But at the same time, it's like, okay, like we got to start figuring out who we are and what we are, and like really like tightening down the nuts and bolts on that.
I gotta think that a lot of the guys that didn't play today because of injury were more precautionary going for because of the short week. Because we saw Golden play a little bit last week, but he didn't play today. We saw, like we said earlier, Josh Jacobs probably would have played today had there been, this would have been a normal week. So I'm wondering if some of that had an effect, and that's kind of what I said with the injury report was, had it been any other week, would some of these guys actually been listed or been out on those? But yeah, I mean, it. And then this is something I said in the post game with Brian, that this is a weird team compared to what we've been used to for the longest time. We have always had to deal with our offense is lights out, and we just got to hope that our defense can do something. Well, now it's completely opposite. Our defense is playing lights out, but our offense is, well, maybe we'll get a few touchdowns out of it. So I don't know. I don't know how to treat this team because of that simple fact. I know we've talked before, but what the last time we've had such a dominant defense was, maybe you could throw the 2010 defense in there, but before that it had to have been 96, 97.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This team just feels so weird compared to what we're used to.
Yeah. Like you said, I think we all thought this offense would be playing better one way or another, or honestly a couple different ways. So remains to be seen, but I think we'll stop dissecting this one because we're just going to keep talking in the same circles. You got anything else before I start really hacking up something to push the limits on how I'm feeling today?
No, I think we're pretty good. Just try to get as healthy as you can for Thursday's game. And hope that I hope the Lions are a little bit more beat up because of what they had to deal with in their game than what the Packers are. Because relatively speaking, the Packers got off light compared to what the Giants Lions game went to be.
Yep. So I agree. Let's see how much that overtime, that extra period, affects the Lions on Thanksgiving. And this is a game you got to have because you're not getting any more help outside the rest of the division. The Rams look just insurmountable at this point, and it's all about just getting as high in the seeding as you can, and you just got to keep stacking wins at this point. And we'll see how it goes, but that's going to do it for us today. The Packers get their 7th win of the season, move to 7-3-1. They remain second in the division because the Bears continue to just have the luck of the Irish and stack up win after win. But hey, you play them 2 times the rest of this season. You're going to play Detroit one more time, Minnesota one more time. This is strap up, nut up time for the NFL season. And, like we've been saying for the last little bit, the Packers have a lot of questions to answer, but no better time to do it than in the stretch run as you get ready for the postseason. But check out our website, ohanapackers.org. We're going to keep you guys up to speed with what we're seeing. Please support us through our merch. Just help us get along with what we want to do in terms of this site. Please follow us on your favorite social medias at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Search us Ohana Packers Edition on Facebook. Please follow us there for so that we can get to 100 followers, hit up our ability to live stream there. Excuse me. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like, get a subscribe, and hit us up on any of our social medias. Joe tries to put out the posts before and after games. Just hit us with any questions, comments, thoughts, and we'll address them on the show because we want to create the content you're looking for. The Packers pick up their 2nd division win of the season. They outpace their division win total from 2024, so great improvement there, and set themselves up for a very important Thanksgiving game against the Lions this coming Thursday. So for Iowa Joe, I'm Mike. Go Pack Go, and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go